Today is September 28, 2025. The world knows Costa Rica as a land of extraordinary peace and natural wonder. In its bustling capital, San Jose, life moves with a unique rhythm. Here, amidst the vibrant markets and historic buildings, one hears a common phrase, Pura Vida. This means pure life, and it is more than just a saying. It is a philosophy that guides the nation. This small Central American country famously has no army. It chose instead to invest its resources in education and healthcare for its people. This remarkable decision has shaped a society that values well-being and harmony above all else, creating a peaceful corner of the world. The spirit of Pura Vida extends far beyond the city limits. It is found in the misty cloud forests and along the sun-drenched coastlines. It is in the calls of the howler monkeys and the silent flight of the morpho butterfly. Costa Ricans, or Ticos as they are affectionately known, live with a deep connection to their environment. They understand that their nation's true wealth is not found in banks or vaults. It is found in the staggering biodiversity that surrounds them. This modern identity, so intertwined with nature and peace, makes the country's name, Costa Rica, or Rich Coast, seem perfectly fitting, but the name was given for very different reasons, long ago. To understand the origin of this name, we must journey back in time. We must travel back more than 500 years to an era of great exploration and conquest. It was a time when European ships first crossed the vast Atlantic Ocean, searching for new lands and unimaginable treasures. The quest for gold, spices, and new territories drove these explorers to the very edges of the known world. Their arrival in the Americas would change the course of history forever. The story of Costa Rica's name begins with these ambitious voyages, with the hopes and dreams of men who saw a new world full of promise. The name Costa Rica carries with it the echoes of this history. It tells a tale of expectation and reality, of a search for one kind of riches and the eventual discovery of another. While the country today is celebrated for its lush rainforests and abundant wildlife, the name was not inspired by these natural treasures. It was born from a powerful and alluring myth, the myth of a land filled with gold. This name, given in a moment of hopeful speculation, would come to define the nation in ways the first explorers could never have imagined. It set the stage for a unique history that would eventually lead to the peaceful green nation we see today. The story begins on a warm September day in 1502. The great explorer Christopher Columbus was on his fourth and final voyage to the Americas. His ships, battered by storms, sought shelter in a calm bay on the Caribbean coast of what is now Costa Rica. He landed near a small island he named Vida. Here he encountered the local indigenous people. They were adorned with magnificent ornaments of gold. They wore large gold discs like mirrors around their necks. They also wore headdresses decorated with the precious metal. For Columbus and his crew, this was an incredibly exciting sight. It seemed to be proof of the immense wealth they had been searching for. Columbus was captivated by what he saw. He believed he had finally found a land overflowing with gold. The indigenous people were friendly and traded some of their golden objects with the Spanish sailors. This encounter filled Columbus's reports with enthusiasm. He wrote about a land of vast riches, creating a powerful image in the minds of the Spanish crown and other adventurers. He believed this coastline was just the edge of a much larger, wealthier territory. His descriptions painted a picture of a place where gold was as common as stone, waiting to be collected by those brave enough to claim it. Following Columbus's voyage, other Spanish conquistadors were drawn to the region. They were fueled by stories of golden empires like those of the Aztecs and the Incas. Explorers like Gil Gonzalez Davila arrived in the 1520s. He led an expedition along the Pacific coast of the territory. He also encountered indigenous groups who possessed gold. His expedition traded for and sometimes forcibly took large quantities of the metal. These early successes further strengthened the belief that this land was a source of limitless wealth. The name Costa Rica, or Rich Coast, began to circulate among the Spanish, a name born from these initial, promising encounters. These early expeditions were filled with hope and ambition. The Spanish saw a coastline that seemed to promise everything they desired. They envisioned a new colony that would rival the riches of Mexico and Peru. The sight of gold, worn so openly by the local people, was a powerful symbol. It suggested that the source of this wealth must be nearby, hidden in the mountains and rivers of this new land. The name Costa Rica was not just a label, it was a declaration of purpose. It was a statement of the immense value they believed this coast held. a belief that would drive their actions for many years to come. The name Costa Rica was not officially given by a single person in a single moment. Instead, it evolved from the collective excitement and reports of the early Spanish explorers. After Columbus's initial contact, and the subsequent expeditions of men like Gil González Dávila, the idea of a rich coast took hold. The term appeared in official documents and letters sent back to Spain. It captured the fervent hope that this particular stretch of the Central American isthmus was uniquely wealthy. The name was a product of the era's obsession with gold and the promise of instant fortune that the New World seemed to offer. The meaning of the name is straightforward. Costa means coast and Rica means rich. It was a literal description of what the Spanish expected to find. They believed that the gold ornaments they had seen were just the tip of the iceberg. They imagined vast gold mines hidden in the dense jungle and mountains. The name was a powerful marketing tool. It attracted more colonists and investors, all hoping to share in the promised bounty. It set expectations incredibly high, painting a picture of a land where one could simply pick up gold from the ground. This alluring name was a direct reflection of the conquistadors' primary motivation. This belief was reinforced by the stories and legends that were common at the time. Tales of El Dorado, the lost city of gold, fueled the imaginations of many explorers. Every new land was seen as a potential location for this mythical place. When the Spanish saw the gold of the indigenous people in this region, they connected it to these legends. They thought perhaps this is it, perhaps this rich coast is the gateway to El Dorado. The name therefore was not just descriptive, it was aspirational. It embodied the ultimate dream of every conquistador who ventured into the unknown jungles of the Americas. So, the name Costa Rica was born from a mixture of observation, hope, and myth. It was a name given not for what the land truly was, but for what the Spanish desperately wanted it to be. It encapsulated the very essence of the age of conquest, a relentless search for material wealth. The shimmer of gold on a distant shore was enough to name a country and shape its destiny. The reality of this rich coast, however, would prove to be very different from the glittering dream. The name would remain, but the riches the Spanish sought would be far more difficult to find than they ever anticipated. The great irony of Costa Rica's name is that the country was, in fact, one of the poorest in the Spanish Empire in terms of mineral wealth. The initial excitement over the gold ornaments of the indigenous people quickly faded. As the Spanish began to explore the interior of the country, they found no great cities of gold. There were no vast empires to conquer and plunder like those of the Aztecs in Mexico or the Incas in Peru. The gold they had seen was the result of centuries of slow accumulation and trade, not a sign of massive deposits waiting to be mined. The reality on the ground was harsh and disappointing for the conquistadors. The terrain was incredibly difficult. Dense rainforests, rugged mountains, and swampy lowlands made exploration a dangerous and frustrating task. Furthermore, the indigenous populations were smaller and more scattered than in other regions. They fiercely resisted Spanish attempts to enslave them and force them to work in mines. Without a large labor force and with no major gold veins to exploit, the dream of a rich coast began to crumble. The Spanish found themselves in a land that was rich in nature but poor in the one thing they truly wanted. Compared to other Spanish colonies, Costa Rica yielded very little gold or silver. The massive quantities of precious metals that flowed to Spain from Mexico and Peru simply did not exist here. This had a profound effect on the colony's development. Without the lure of quick riches, Costa Rica attracted far fewer Spanish settlers. It became a remote and neglected outpost of the Spanish Empire. The grand name Rich Coast became a source of bitter irony for the few colonists who struggled to survive there. They were living on a coast that was rich in name only. This scarcity of gold, while a disappointment for the Spanish, ultimately shaped Costa Rica's unique path. Because there were no large mines, the colony did not develop the rigid and exploitative social structures found elsewhere in Latin America. There was no wealthy mining aristocracy and no massive enslaved population. Instead, the Spanish settlers who stayed had to work the land themselves. This created a more modest and egalitarian society of small-scale farmers. The failure to find gold forced the colonists to discover a different kind of wealth, one that was rooted in the soil itself. With the dream of gold all but gone, the few Spanish settlers in Costa Rica had to find another way to survive. They turned to the land itself. The colony slowly transformed into a society of farmers. Instead of grand haciendas worked by thousands, the landscape was dotted with small family farms. The colonists had to clear the dense forests and cultivate the soil with their own hands. This hard work forged a different kind of character, one based on self-reliance and resilience. The focus shifted from plundering the earth for minerals to nurturing it for sustenance. This was the beginning of Costa Rica's agricultural identity. Early settlements were small and isolated. The first permanent Spanish settlement, Cartago, was founded in 1563 in the temperate Central Valley. This area had fertile volcanic soil and a pleasant climate, making it ideal for farming. Here the colonists grew crops for their own survival, such as wheat, corn, and vegetables. Life was difficult. The colony was poor and largely ignored by the Spanish authorities in Guatemala, which was the regional capital. Trade was limited, and the settlers lived a modest, almost isolated existence. They were far from the centers of power and wealth in the Spanish Empire. One of the first valuable crops they cultivated for export was cacao. The cacao bean was highly prized in Europe for making chocolate. For a time, cacao plantations along the Caribbean coast brought a small measure of prosperity to the colony. However, these plantations were often raided by pirates and were susceptible to disease. The cacao boom did not last, and the colony once again fell back on subsistence farming. This period taught the settlers an important lesson. Wealth that came from the land required patience and hard work. It was not the quick fortune they had once dreamed of. This agricultural foundation created a society that was fundamentally different from its neighbors. Without the extreme wealth gap created by mining, colonial Costa Rica was more egalitarian. Power and land were more evenly distributed. This social structure, born out of the absence of gold, laid the groundwork for the democratic and peaceful nation that would emerge centuries later. The settlers found their riches not in glittering metal but in the fertile soil and the crops it could produce. The rich coast was beginning to reveal its true, more sustainable form of wealth, one that was grown rather than mined. As the centuries passed, Costa Rica remained a quiet, agricultural corner of the Spanish Empire. Its journey to independence in the 19th century was as unique as its colonial history. When news of independence from Spain reached Central America in 1821, Costa Rica was so isolated that it learned of its own freedom a month after the fact. There were no major battles fought on its soil. The transition was largely peaceful, a reflection of the society that had developed over time. After a brief period as part of the Mexican Empire and then the Federal Republic of Central America, Costa Rica became a fully independent nation in 1838. Upon gaining independence, the new nation had a choice to make about its identity, including its name. They could have shed the name Costa Rica, a name that represented the failed dreams of their former colonial rulers. It was a name that stood for a promise of gold that was never fulfilled. Yet, they chose to keep it. The name had been with them for nearly 300 years. It had become part of their story. Instead of rejecting it, they began to redefine it. The rich coast was no longer about mineral wealth, it was about the potential of their fertile land and the hard work of their people. The 19th century brought a new source of agricultural wealth: coffee. The volcanic soils of the Central Valley were perfect for growing high-quality coffee beans. The grain of gold, as coffee was called, brought new prosperity to the nation. It allowed Costa Rica to build roads, schools, and hospitals. This coffee-driven economy reinforced the country's agricultural identity. The wealth was still coming from the soil, but it was now connecting the small nation to the global market. The name Costa Rica started to feel more appropriate again, as the country was becoming rich from its agricultural exports. This new prosperity, combined with the nation's egalitarian roots, helped to solidify a unique national identity. The decision to keep the name Costa Rica was a powerful act of reinterpretation. It transformed a symbol of colonial greed into a symbol of national pride and agricultural success. The country was proving that a rich coast did not need gold mines. Its riches could be cultivated through hard work, peace, and a deep connection to the land. This identity would continue to evolve, eventually embracing a new and even more profound understanding of what true wealth means. Today, in the 21st century, the name Costa Rica has taken on a meaning that the Spanish conquistadors could never have conceived. The rich coast is now globally recognized not for gold or coffee, but for its incredible natural wealth. This small country, covering just a tiny fraction of the world's landmass, is home to an astonishing 5% of the planet's biodiversity. Its richness is measured in the number of species that live within its borders. The brilliant quetzals, the slow-moving sloths, the vibrant tree frogs, and the thousands of unique plants and insects. This is the new gold. This immense biodiversity has become the cornerstone of the modern Costa Rican economy. The country has become a world leader in ecotourism. Millions of visitors travel here each year, not to search for treasure but to experience the wonders of the natural world. They come to walk through pristine rainforests, watch sea turtles nest on protected beaches, and marvel at the symphony of life in the jungle. The government has wisely protected this asset, with over a quarter of the country's land designated as national parks and reserves. This commitment to conservation ensures that the rich coast will remain rich for generations to come. The meaning of wealth has been completely transformed. True richness, as Costa Rica now shows the world, is found in a healthy environment and a stable, peaceful society. It is the wealth of clean air and fresh water. It is the wealth of a population that is educated and healthy. It is the wealth of a country that abolished its army in 1948 and proudly invests in its people and its planet. The Pura Vida lifestyle is the ultimate expression of this new wealth, a focus on well-being and happiness that money cannot buy. The country's enduring name now fits better than ever. The journey of the name Costa Rica is a remarkable story of transformation. It began as a fantasy of golden treasure, a symbol of colonial ambition. It survived a reality of agricultural struggle and isolation, and it has emerged today as a celebrated emblem of ecological wonder and peaceful living. The name that once represented a failed search for one kind of fortune now perfectly describes a nation that has found a far greater, more sustainable treasure. The rich coast is, and always has been, rich. It just took the world 500 years to understand what its true riches really are.